Once went on a glider up in New York, Corning, New York, and you sit with a pilot in the glider, and another plane pulls you up. And when you're in the air, the pilot says to me in the glider, all right, reach up and pull that ball, that red ball, pull it, and that'll disengage us from the other plane. So I pull it, and we're soaring around, no motor, we're just floating. And the pilot says to me, all right, now you fly the plane. I said, I don't know how to fly the plane. He said, oh, yes, you do. I saw you in the movie, in the Misfits, he said, and you were flying that Martin biplane from 1939. I saw it. I said, there was a pilot and huddled in between my knees. He was flying the damn thing.
There was a woman who actually lived at Pyramid Lake, and she lived alone in this little cottage. And she told me once that every November or whatever, her former husband sent her one rose.
On the anniversary of our divorce, my husband always sends me one potted yellow rose.
And that meant so much to her. And I once talked to her about him, and she had only a certain amount of empathy for him that he had to put up with her. See?
Oh, well, Charles never would have stayed married to me. I even lost the vacuum cleaner once, and they still haven't found it.
Thelma was the wise woman of the West. She was bright. She was a true pro. She learned. The method is a mysterious term. It's like you become a born-again actor. And born-again actors can be very difficult because they think no one else knows the answer. Gable and Thelma knew the answers.
When we went back there to shoot the film, the woman still lived there. She met Marilyn on the set because we were shooting right next to her house. And she said to me, you mustn't be too nice to her. I said, what do you mean by that? She says, she wouldn't explain that. She just said it. And it's a strange thing for her to have said.
The camera doesn't lie. Elliot was like a shepherd trying to get 5 sheep who wandered all over the place. And his great triumph was to get all of us gathered that day.
I was just a photographer on the set. You know, I just mind your own business, take pictures, and drink with the boys afterwards.
He knows the tricks of the trade, and he's hoping that he'll get a cheerful shot maybe. But all of us came with our own angst, our own bile.
You're a photographer. You just take pictures of what's in front of you.
Arthur, standing there magisterial. Well, Frank Taylor, if you look at his hand, is leaning away thinking, oh God, what have I gotten this group together? Gable is an old hand at posing for me. And Marilyn is a master of the camera and photography, a master.
She would come into a set where everybody had been waiting for hours and hours and hours, frustrated, angry, in various degrees of whatever emotion they had. She'd walk on the set and nobody said a word. It was as though she'd not been late. Nobody said, Jesus Christ, can't you come on time? Nobody ever said a word to her.
I used to be at the office first thing in the morning. Crew would go out, and I would wait until I heard that she was ready to come out. And I would go downstairs. I'd be in, she's already coming down. I'd say, fine. I'd get in the car, go out to the set. So when I arrived, I'd say, she's on her way. You hear, so, oh, great, you know. Well, it'd be another hour or so before she'd show up, you know.
You, Mom, went and visited them at the Mapes where they had the room and...
Oh, sure.
And found things weren't good, right?
I certainly did, because at that point, she had had an affair on the side with Yves Montand, and they were having a big fight about that.
Right.
And at the same time, he was supposed to be finishing the script,
Right.
and he was sitting there with the typewriter, but he wasn't, you know, they were just arguing. And so that's when I went down and got another room at the end of the hall. I went down to the desk and got another room and said to Arthur, let's go over here where you can work.
Something happened in the relationship that was tearing it apart. So she was torn, conflicted, either in one area with her real life and the acting life of this woman, Rosalind. If you see the movie carefully, you'll see how vulnerable, how unhappy she was for various reasons. One, I think, is Arthur had written a valentine to this woman, a love piece. Each male in the movie spoke of how glorious she was, how wonderful, how beautiful, how sensitive.
You're a real beautiful woman.
And each one was going to resurrect and save that
It's
woman.
almost kind of an honor sitting next to you. You just shine in my eyes. That's my true feeling, Rosalind.
That made her more unhappy. The end. There is no the end. She says, how do we get home? He says, we'll follow that star and we'll get there. Now, I'm flying home the next day, and the pilot announces to everybody that Clark Gable, the actor, just had a heart attack. And I thought, oh, God, how... He passed the physical. He was in great shape. He had dieted a little to get in shape. And President Eisenhower called him and said, listen, I just had one. You'll get through it. Just have a positive attitude and you'll get through it. And he did for 10 more days. And then he had a massive heart attack, and that did him.
It really didn't work as a movie in the end. There's something about it
That's probably the main
it's not her.
main
it's just-
situation here. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And the audience, they catch on quickly.
Exactly.
Just didn't work for them.
It didn't work.
They didn't
make
accept
it.
They didn't
her.
like her. They didn't like anybody,
Didn't
really.
accept
They
it,
didn't
no.
like Gable. It wasn't a Gable movie.
The subject
It wasn't a
matter,
Monty
you know,
Clift movie. And it
Right.
wasn't really a Marilyn Monroe movie.
all worked against.
Or a John Huston movie. It was an Arthur Miller movie.
Well, it was artistically a wonderful experience. It's just that personally it was terrible to see Marilyn go through such torture. It's a very mysterious business. It's very difficult to generalize about the movies. It's a mystical effect on you, finally. I can see where people would devote their whole lives to fiddling with this